Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, tuning into Telling My Story. My name is Tanya Neumeyer. I am proudly Heather Hamilton's cousin, and this is my darling partner, Barbara Erochina, proud founder of Be With Cards. We're here to talk about self-care today. As a coach, so you now, sit in a chair and talk to people about what their life is like and how it's changing and how it might need to change and be uncomfortable. So what have you learned about other people's self-care through your experience of sitting and listening and supporting?
Yeah, I actually do my coaching in these very chairs in this office, which is in Toronto, downtown.
Hello from Chico System.
Yeah, what I've learned about other people's self-care is that on one hand, we're all really, really different, and for each of us, self-care looks like a different thing at different times in our lives. And then on the other hand, we all need the exact same thing, and we're a lot more alike than we are not alike. And that, I think, has been the most poignant paradox for me to learn, is that all of us need to slow down. All of us need more permission to know that it's okay to not be okay. All of us are really doing our best. That all of us fear we are not enough. That all of us fear that what we produce isn't worthy, that we're not creative enough, we're not smart enough, that our work in the world is meaningless. That all of us have kind of those fears and those worries and those needs, and that, no matter what we do to take care of ourselves, those are the things that we're trying to calm down and quell and support. And so I've learned that we share all of that in common. But then the other thing is that, we all fulfill those needs in very different ways. And I don't know if I've so much learned that through my practice as I have, had the permission to be more explorative around what that can look like. For one person, it looks like digging in the soil. For another person, it looks like going and partying with girlfriends and dancing up a storm all night. For another person, it looks like taking medication. For another person, it looks like saying no, I'm not interested in meds for managing my depression. Instead, I'm going to try this and this and this and that approach. And that neither person is wrong. That all of those forms of support are equal and legitimate, and it's about finding the one that's actually right for you and for your own needs and for your own place of journey.
The paradox about how we're different and similar reminds me of the paradox that I hear you talk about a lot, about how the best way to speed up is to slow down. And I hear that echoed in both of the responses that you've given to these questions that I'm throwing at you. So I wonder how that will continue to play out both in your work with clients and as we get to talk about the product that you've developed coming out of your work with clients. But before we get there, because we are on Telling My Story, where there's a lot of parents, specifically moms, I'm wondering from this point of view, where you don't yet have children, what you imagine your self-care practice will look like when you do have kids.
Ooh, this is a really good question, and what a hot audience to talk to about it. I was just actually thinking about this today. I was washing my hands in the bathroom, and for some reason, I don't know whether I'd spent time reading about somebody's experience as a parent earlier this morning or something, but I thought to myself, it's really just two completely different worlds. Completely different. I see this, happening in my brother's life right now, who's got a brand new baby. There's the life before babies, where you've got all these problems and you're struggling with things and you're figuring them out. And then there's the life after the children come. And then suddenly your life is suddenly your children. And I see that when we visit my brother. I'm like, oh, your life now is Eva. That's it. She's your life. And everything else has suddenly become a planet. That circles the sun. That is Eva. That is dochka, which is the Russian word for daughter. That we use a lot. So, what do we so that what does that mean for me? Because I very much right now have a strong bias is almost what I want to say towards the fact that the best way for us to support other people is to make sure that we have an overflowing cup, to make sure that we tend to our needs first, that we take care of ourselves first. And I would like to be able to keep that belief and stay true to that belief and practice that belief as much as possible when I have children, when you and I have children, because I do think that's going to be best for them. And at the same time, I know you can't always do that as a parent, you know, and I know that's a reality we're going to run into where I'm going to have to figure out what that looks like on a day-to-day kind of like messy, real level. But no matter what it looks like, I know that I want to keep a commitment to make sure that I am well nourished, you know, in my body and my spirit and my soul, as much as is possible, so that I can be the best possible version of myself for my kids. Because I never want my kids to grow up and say, you know, I grew up with a mom that was miserable and that always made me feel guilty for giving up everything for me. I just wouldn't want that to happen, because I've had that with my own family. I've experienced, you know, as I think many people have, and especially as many immigrants like myself have, the moment when a parent says, you know, I gave up my life so that you could have a life. And the kind of pressure and weight that comes with that is really awful. Not to mention that then we're modeling for our kids like, yeah, this is how you parent, this is how you live, this is how you live life, is you always put yourself second to other people. And that just doesn't seem joyful or fulfilling to me, or the highest use of my gifts in the world. So.
Good. Barbara and I had the pleasure, the honor, and a lot of learning in taking a course together called Queer and Trans Family Planning. We had different parents come in who had found different ways as LGBTQ people to be parents, and some of the advice that they gave us was specific to the time when newborns are around. Make a get list, make a do list, and keep them there so that when someone says, how can I help, you have an answer. Please get me this, or please can you do these dishes, can you do this laundry. It strikes me that in parenting, the age and stage of the kids in your life really, really you know, give context to what your self-care might look like, right? So if you're like Heather, going to play hockey all the time, you know, what does it look like to plan meals ahead of time? And when is it self-care to get fast food? You know, because it takes best care of the relationships. And, you know, I'm really filled with a lot of admiration for what it looks like to be that flexible, that compassionate, to be able to manage risks and uncertainty. You know, as I've seen even from our friend with a 10-month-old, transitioning into being a year, like that toddlerhood, there's a big switch, right? So versus 2 and 3 and 5, you know, and I, as an educator working with students, I've seen the minds develop from a 10-year-old to a 12-year-old is quite distinct. So having a handful of teenagers on your hands, how did my parents do that? How does anyone do all of this parenting? It's certainly something I have so much respect for, particularly when folks are also marked with grief. Is there anything you wanted to say about any of that?
Yeah, there was. What was it?
Admiration.
No. And I think sometimes we forget that self-care isn't just about bubble baths and aromatherapy and going to the spa. That sometimes self-care is really about getting those things done that we need to get done, right? So even pre-packing the lunches when that's not fun, and the dinners and the pre-cooking the dinners, and the going to doctor's appointments, right? Like all that stuff, sometimes it's not fun, but it is self-care. It's taking care of our future selves as much as of our present selves. And I think that's an important piece to remember too, is that maybe self-care transitions a bit, you know, as we begin our lives as new parents, and it becomes less about only doing the stuff that's pleasurable and like feels really good, but adding more stuff to the self-care kind of like toolbox that is about making sure that we're well set up, even if the thing that we actually need to do is not as pleasant. Like baby proofing the house. That's a form of self-care, because I want my kid to be safe, and so I don't have to worry and grieve them like cutting a finger off.
Yeah, I think there's a time when self-care and community care become linked, that you need to take care of yourself so you can take care of others, and that also you're part of a community, so you can be taken care of by being part of a community, a family, a group of people, a hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
And that the way that your self-care has changed from walking, to journaling with your intuition, that also when you have a toddler and we have who knows, teenagers, it will look different at different age and stage, both for each of us and for the kids themselves. So it brings me to my next question. How do you think this amazing product, Be With, the deck of self-care cards, can help current parents who may be laughing at some of our speculation on parenting?
It's true. We'd love any feedback from you real parents
below.
Since I'm sure we're not going to get any advice about what it's like to go into parenting and to be brand new into this as we try and get, knocked up in the next couple of years. I'm sure we're not going to get any advice at all.
Sarcasm, folks, back home.
So, feel free to add some more. Well, first, should we maybe introduce the deck first?
Sure. There are a deck of, you cannot see with a light, but
I can offer it.
There are 6 categories: ask, write, move, speak, rest, and affirm. I got them.
You did get them.
I've seen
you'll see the pictures down below and stuff. So there's 6 different categories, and there's 6 cards in each category. And each card offers you a different prompt to either practice self-care, or offers you an affirmation, or offers you a mindfulness prompt, or is just a little bit of a reminder. So for example, this one says, I am allowed to give myself what I need, which I think will be backwards for you, audience, but, these are the things we learn when we're new to video work. And the way that I think these could be really useful to parents, I also especially imagine new parents, but I'm sure older parents do. I don't really know why I think new
parents.
Wiser parents. Older meaning you've been parents for longer, not that you're old. Anyway, so I think there's a bunch of ways that the cards can be used. They can be used kind of like a tarot deck, which just means that they can be kind of picked at rather than with the prompt. You would pick from the back. You would just draw a card at random. And let's see if we can get you. Let's get you to draw a card right now. Well, actually, that's a good one for new parents.
It says, speak with a stranger at a coffee shop. Talk about something simple like the weather.
Which is something new parents need to do regularly, especially when they're out for walks with newborns and they've been in their house talking to nobody else except a newborn for several days in a row. That's a nice reminder to be like, hey, today when you're out for your daily walk, stop at a coffee shop, talk to a stranger. It's okay. Most strangers don't bite. So I think it can be just a lovely prompt that way, that you can pick out a prompt and then kind of set it as an intention for your day or an intention for your week. Maybe an intention for nap time if you get, those sacred kind of hour or two away while your partner, if you have one, is watching over the child, or, even while the child is napping and you, for some reason, aren't, have enough energy to be awake at the same time as they do, and don't perhaps have a ton of laundry like most new parents do. Dishes, all of it at the same time. Yeah. But the other thing that I think would be really helpful about these for new parents is as a form of reflection. So, for new parents, when they do get to spend time together, from seeing my friends who are new parents, so often there's this really beautiful, hilarious, just glazed look over their eyes that is just I haven't slept in ages. And so, conversation kind of happens, especially when you've got little ones, in these kind of chunks and spurts. And that means sometimes it's harder to drop down to an intimate level because you're just concerned with pooping schedules. And so I think I've heard some feedback from people about the fact that this is a lovely conversation tool where you can go through the deck, lay them all out, and then just see what resonates. So a card like this that says, can I name what I'm feeling in just one word, is a great one to reflect on for an overwhelmed parent that might not have, half an hour to talk at depth about their feelings, but can pick this up on any given day with a pal and say, today it's overwhelmed. Today it's joyous. Today it's happy. Today it's all over the freaking place, no matter what that is. So I think that way as well. Not to mention that I think this would be a great deck to bring to your baby and mama yoga class. and get one set up at the front of everybody's mats. So it's really not about the cards, though. It's about developing a kinder, more loving, more trusting relationship with ourselves, which is what my hope is for the cards, but especially for new parents, because, all sarcasm aside, I do think that we have this culture very much of parenting constantly being critiqued, and there being this way to parent, or this way to parent, and this way to parent, and every way to parent seems to be better than the way to parent that comes naturally to you. And really, I think that is such a mistake, because we are all different, and all of our kids need different things in terms of how they're parented, and all of us need different ways of parenting that suit us and allow our best inner mom or inner dad or inner parent to come through. And so so I think my biggest hope is that what the cards would actually give new parents is an opportunity to slow down with themselves enough and tend to themselves enough so that they can, trust their process, so they can really listen in for what's needed. And maybe it's a nap, or maybe it's to read another parenting book, or maybe it's to watch some TV, or maybe it's to take the baby for an extra long walk, but so that they can really tap in and hear from inside the wisdom that says what's next and what's right for them this afternoon with their child, and then to follow that wisdom that they hear and follow it. Yeah.
I'm imagining that parents with a 7, a 10, and a 13-year-old, or 3 teenagers could also use the cards in really creative ways to interact with their kids. So as an educator this weekend, I'll be using the cards in a workshop. And I'm very much looking forward to getting to see the response from different age groups, because there are some kind of timeless questions that are part of this deck. And timeless affirmations. My parents raised me to always do my best. So when I draw the affirm card that says I am doing my best, it's like having a hug from my mom or dad. I sink into that feeling of really knowing that as a truth. And so I think starting to work with a teenager, preteen, with some open-ended, big picture conversations can lead to some creative forms of parenting. So we very much do wish you well and hope to hear from you about how these cards work for you. The Indiegogo campaign is still up. Please do support and get in touch with Barbara, bewith.org to get the cards. Thank you so much, everyone, for having us today. Is there anything else you want to wrap up with?
No, I think just to say that I feel so excited to join you all in the parenthood adventure for those of you that are parents. And that I feel so grateful for Heather's voice, and I think all of us who read her blog do, and who read her work. It's always so absolutely inspiring for me to see Heather post about her journey, her family journey, her cancer journey, her journey as a mom, her journey with Zach. And I just feel so grateful that there are role models out there like Heather, of people who are sharing their story with such courage and who are reminding us that vulnerability is actually strength, which is such a big part of my work with clients, reminding clients that to be vulnerable is to be strong and brave. And it is something that we all need more of. So I guess my thanks is to all of you watching, but also to Heather for facilitating the kind of space that can even host these conversations online. And also thank you for interviewing me. I've never had Tanya interview me before, which is kind of fun. So who knows? Maybe we'll do more of this.
Stay tuned, folks. And yes, thank you, Heather. It's many of us through Barbara's work and through TEDx talks have seen Brene Brown's posts about vulnerability, but to see you practice it really takes it to another level. And is heartwarming and really inspiring. So thank you. Great to interview. Thanks for being vulnerable with me.
You're welcome.
And the camera.
Thanks.